How are you,
Thank you
sir?
so much. Thank you so much for inviting me again. Thank you.
Sir, your blessings, your presence is blessings for us. Really, I feel pleasure from core of my heart when I see you, sir. From Calcutta, our friendship has started, and really, you are kind enough to. Whenever I request you, you are ready.
Yes,
There is
yes,
no ifs and but. So, sir,
yes.
great you are. And sir, all the participants, please welcome Sri Dr. Dinesh Jotwani ji, who is a senior proprietor associate of the Jotwani Associate Law Firm in New Delhi. It's a 35 years or 40 years around old law firm in India related to intellectual property rights. It is really doing marvelous work in India. Along with criminal law, civil laws, other laws are also there, but focus area is intellectual property right. And sir has immense a lot of experiences, and sir will share with you about the patent system in India also. As so, therefore, please welcome Dinesh Jotwani sir in this August lecture, Summer School of DPIIT-IPR, Chair of the National Law University, Patna. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you again, sir, for inviting me. It is always a pleasure uh, to be speaking with the students of Chanakya National Law University. And I always look out for these kind of session, and especially uh, speaking to you and seeing you online. So I will, as you rightly mentioned, our core areas in my law firm, Jotwani Associates, is intellectual property rights. And today we are going to talk about a very unique part of intellectual property rights, that is the audit, the valuation, and the licensing of IPRs. Though our focus will remain patents again, uh, but when I say patents and IPRs, they are interchangeable. When we talk about valuation, when we talk about auditing, and also when we talk about licensing, um, these terms, patent, trademark, because all of them collectively are intangibles. All of them collectively constitute intellectual property rights. The way we license them, maybe, and we'll come to different types of licensing. Maybe the terms used are different. The nomenclature may be different, but the licensing itself of IPRs has some unique aspects that we'll discuss about. We'll also talk about different methods of valuation of IPRs. And we'll also talk about importance of valuation. Why do we need valuation? At the end of the day, why do businesses need valuation of IPRs? Why it has become significant for the businesses to do it? And where does the role of a lawyer comes? I know I'm addressing law students here. They're not chartered accountants. They're not engineers. Um, but how does IPR's due diligence work? How do we look at the audit part, which is actually due diligence in IPRs? So it is a constructive thing. We'll talk about how the lawyers work with engineers, would work with CAs, would work with procurement part, how they would work with HR, and how they would work with sales at the end of the day to constitute a team which actually helps us in enhancing the value of IPRs and in turn enhancing the value of businesses. So I have few slides. I'll share with you the slides, and then perhaps we can go a little deeper. I know I have 1 hour, and maybe last 5-7 minutes we'll keep for Q&As. Let me share the slides and let me know um, if they are not visible.
They are not visible.
Okay. Okay. Let me see. So can somebody help me here? I don't know why the presenter, I'm unable to click. So is there a permission that you need to give me?
Sir, I have already granted you the permissions. You are
Okay.
already the presenter.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. Let me try. If it doesn't work, perhaps I'll email it to you and then we can. No, it's I'm unable to do this. Can somebody help? Can I email it somewhere, the presentation, and perhaps that will work? And so there are 4 buttons: content, presenter mode. I'm at standout, content only, and side by side, and then there's reporter. Am I missing something?
Hello, sir, can you hear me? Hello. Hello. Sir, can you hear me? Hello.
Okay, is it better now? Can you see now?
Yes, sir. So your screen is visible now, sir.
Okay. All right. Is my screen visible? Full screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry about that, Hitch. I think there was some
No
settings
issues, sir.
problem. Yeah,
No
I
issues,
think
sir.
that. All right. So today we are talking about the valuation, audit, and licensing of IPR. And collectively, this is also called risk management for a business. And I'll also inform you on where exactly the lawyers would come into picture and would help you in all the 3 important functions of IPRs and in turn important functions for a business. So as I mentioned earlier, IPR as such involves all aspects of a business, especially business which has technology as a basis, whether it's CAs in the firm, lawyers, patent agents, marketing people, engineers, infosec, sales, human resource procurement. All of them, all of these pieces constitute a one big picture of an organization. Everything is required, otherwise a business will fall apart. And this is where the role of IPRs come into picture, and particularly I will talk about IPR audits, the valuation part of it, licenses part, and how these are uh, licensed, how the patents and trademarks are licensed, and revenue made by the businesses. So let's talk about an audit, an IPR audit. So we know different type of audit exists. When we say audit, it can mean anything. It can mean financial audits, which we are all aware of. Chartered accountants would do financial audits, tax audit. Corporate and compliance audits may be done by our company secretaries, whether the company is compliant with the corporate laws. There are internal audits, different kind of audits you can do. You can do software audits to see that your IT network is safe. There are external audit, there are sales audit, there are IP audits. So when we use a term audit, generally we think of a chartered accountant because he is the main guy. It is a statutory audit which is required by law to be done, which are financial audits and tax audits which they have to do. And of course, there are compliance which a company secretary needs to do. All of them have been imposed by law that an organization needs to do. But apart from that, audit is a good way an organization looks at its growth, the current growth, the future plans, and we have an IP audit, which is to look at identify new products, new features, new versions, new processes, new marks, new code, new copyrights, new material, trade secrets. These are different forms of intellectual property, as we know. But if an organization fails to be innovative, it perishes. You would see that the most of the organizations that have survived over the years and over the decades would particularly protect their IPRs. And by IPRs, not only it means patent, trademark, design, trade secret, copyrights, but also different. Your human resource is the biggest form of intellectual property. So you need to protect your IPRs in all formats and in all ways in order that you survive in the competitive market. So why do we need to have an IP audit in an organization? And when I say organization, it means all kind of industries, whether it is auto, pharmaceutical, FMCG, even government organizations, because it establishes procedure, it prepares for sale, purchase, or license. If there is a litigation, again, you will need an IP audit to see and make sure that IP is in box. We'll talk about it more, but this is a term used to show that actually your IPRs are protected. They're not expired. You have to look at overall your protection. That and when I say IPR protection, it does not mean one geography. For big companies, it will be multiple countries. So managing that IPR is a very crucial thing. Whether you need to pay a fees, whether somebody is infringing on your product. So IP needs to be in box. It's a systematic approach for management, protection, and exploitation of intellectual assets. That's we talk about IP audits. IP audit, again, we need to do it in order to review the agreements, licensing agreements that we'll be talking about, maintenance agreement, joint development agreements, and other related agreements. We'll need to see the compliance level. We need to see organizational processes from creation, protection, and enforcement of IPRs. So when we say IP audit, and maybe this slide is missing in saying that, is you even when you get hire people, and especially in Indian context, it becomes important that everything gets protected. work done by an employee, whether he creates an invention, whether he does a copyright software coding, whether he creates a mark, everything belongs to an organization. And when he leaves all the IPRs with the organization. So IP audit would make sure that your HR letters, your HR exit letters are extremely in compliance to protect the company's IPRs. And we'll talk about this when we are speaking about the licensing. So, but this is what the scope of an IP audit is. Very crucial role of an IP audit. Why do we need an IP audit? Of course, to review employment and consultant agreements, who owns the IP, work for hire kind of a provision, non-compete, trade secret protection, identify status of various registrations, review and renewal status of various IP registration, catalog of list of known and unknown IP assets, and develop, of course, appropriate strategies and policies for creation, development, protection, and enforcement of IPR assets. I remember in one of the organizations that we were advising of a copyright, they had written that all IPR belongs to the organization. Very well, that was written in the offer letter of employees. But what was perhaps missing it, they belong to the organization globally. Because if you are protecting that in outside India, you would need a copyright clause, especially as per the Copyright Act, that this is not only protected in India, but also protected globally. So what IPR audit would actually flag this issue, that you cannot file outside India if you don't have a global word written global there, which is a very small thing, but it changes it changes the complete scenario of an organization which is looking for a fast growth. Especially we see a very fast growth in terms of startup environment that we have in India, and it's very important for organizations to keep each and every clause um each and every clause carefully written and perhaps audited also. So we have a list. I can't. Maybe the screen will not show, but we have a list of around uh, more than 60 elements of an organization, which needs to be very carefully seen. So I have done an audit myself. We have these elements, and maybe after the session, if somebody wants to have the particular elements, we will share that with the students who want to actually see what kind of audit trail or audit elements are there, which will help an organization be careful in the market. Maybe in this slide, all of the elements cannot be covered, but of course, we have a sheet that will help every one of us. All right. So again, audit trail from now, this is particularly from patent perspective, where we advise companies to create, and of course, in creating, what can they do in creating an IPR? They can brainstorm, identify which are important pieces of IPRs, because the organization may come out with ideas, hundreds of ideas, but you need to identify. So is there a committee or is there a filter committee, especially for educational institutions? I would advise this kind of a trail, a life cycle of intellectual property, that is very important for educational institutions. They create IPRs. Young students and young workforce is particularly very important for them, and they are mostly creating new ideas, whether they have new ideas with respect to use of AI in some circumstances, or a use of blockchain in some circumstances. The older population or older organization people have experience, but sometimes I think most of the good ideas come from a younger generation. So that's why my emphasis on educational institution, to create to have a creative mechanism of creation of IPRs. We have seen Government of India also encouraging various by its various programs creativity in the institution. So this is where an audit trail, whether they actually have this kind of a mechanism where they create, identify, protect, store is again very important. you protect, you store your all ideas. Where do you store it? Say after 5 years or 10 years, want to see what was created. You should have some kind of a docket system or a storage system which is easily accessible, archivable, um, so that future students or future employees in an organization can easily access this. And of course, an enforcement mechanism. And we'll talk about enforcement in terms of infringement, in terms of in terms of licensing assignments of the IPRs. There is kind of an enforcement of the IPRs in the marketplace that an organization can take place. All right, so this is something about IPR audits, which we advise every organization to do it. It's a massive efforts. It's a project in itself where we are internally looking at all the IPRs that an organization has. This is something in old data, but this is what I got, which is saying how much importance of intangible assets these days. Of course, in 2015 and now we are 2020, nearing 2025, the value of IPRs is going to go high, and the organizations will have more of intangible assets than tangible assets. So the human resource that they have, the patent, trademark, copyrights, and trade secrets that an organization has is more important. So I always use an example of Google. Google's valuation is an intangible asset. The way it searches and brings you the best results that it has. That algorithm, nobody knows about it, right? That's kind of their trade secret, which is a form of an intellectual property rights. So how do they have protected over the years their search algorithm is not known. We know the example of Coke, where they have protected their trade secret over the centuries. Nobody can make a um, Coke, because the formula is not known. McDonald, how they make burgers, the KFC, all of them have different intangible assets, which are much more than the buildings and the furniture that they have. The value of intangible is much more. So that's why the IPR valuation is extremely important for organizations. So what are uh, tangible assets, which may be uh, formally protected, patent, trademark, copyrights, and designs, and there are not formally protected intangible. So maybe the title here is a little wrong. It should be intangible assets. But not formally protected intangible assets are your know-how, talent, skills, workforce, customer list, distribution list. Again, as I talked in organization IPR audit earlier, we have to see that these assets are protected by way of contracts with your workforce, contract with employees, contract with vendors, procurement contracts. Everywhere you need to see the IPR is protected. Now with the Data Protection Act that has come, you again need to see that not only IPR is protected, but your PII, which is your personal information, also gets protected under the DPIIT Act, which is now enforceable in India. So when I say your information, your digital private information, that's also kind of an intellectual property rights. All right. So from the reasons, so what are the reasons why we need to value a patent? And when I say patent, it also means IPRs. It could also mean both formally protected and non-formally protected form of assets. So why do we have to value our assets, intangible assets? Is because of several reasons, and these are enumerated in this present slide, which is decision making regarding investment and commercialization, outright sale, license of rights to practice the invention, mergers and acquisition. In fact, we are in the midst of a big merger that is taking place, and one of the reasons of that merger is the workforce that they have. And a company in Europe wants to acquire a company in Pune because of kind of the workforce that it has. So very important during mergers and acquisition that you value a company based on the workforce, based on the patents, based on the trade secrets. So um, again, for mergers and acquisition process, where a law firm is supporting, we are valuing, we have asked for the valuation, and it's this valuation is not only required by the buyer of the company, but is also required for regulatory purposes by Reserve Bank of India. They make it mandatory for them to value intangibles. That's one reason. Loan collateralization and securitization, again, very important. Many companies would take loan based on their IPRs. We have seen Kingfisher earlier, took a loan based on its brand, international brand name that they had. I know Kingfisher maybe does not exist now, but they took a loan based on this brand from a bank. So if you want to loan, if you want to seek a loan based, and the banks will actually value your IPRs and give you loan based on intangibles that you have. Litigation and again arbitration disputes, very important international arbitration that we are supporting, and we are working on seeing that how do we value the IPRs in order for a settlement that is taking place across borders. Charitable donations, of course, there also you need to value IPRs and see whether this organization has all important approvals. It has all important protection, legal protection across the jurisdiction in order to make a donation, to make a decision on the donation. Now we all know CSR is again mandatory by government. There also we need to see that the CSR that is being done by the organization and on the on the charitable organization it is done, how robust their valuation is, and the valuation is not only based on their tangible but the kind of intangible environment that they create in the jurisdiction that they work. Transfer pricing and intellectual property holding, company transfers, again very important part. Bankruptcy, reorganization, and financial statement reporting. These are corporate. These are not merely big corporate words, I will say, but on day to day when we do transfer pricing and when there is an holding company transfer its assets to a company in India, then or a technology transfer agreement that is done, we always see the value of IPR and make an investment based on such holdings that the subsidiary has. In bankruptcy and reorganization, of course, matter goes to NCLT. NCLT also NCLT and NCLAT all during the reorganization when an IRP is appointed. IRP actually comes and says, "Oh, these are the tangible assets," but it also has intangible assets going into bankruptcy. But the value of its IPR needs to be actually seen by an IRP and come to the valuation which it can which it can recommend to the NCLT board. And of course, financial statement reporting, mandatory to report by chartered accountants the value of the IPRs or intangibles that an organization has. So these are some of the reasons that we talked about in why you need to value an IPR. Ways you value, there are several ways how you value a patent or intangibles or IPRs. The question that I ask when I ask how you value an IPR, there may be several ways to do it in the market. Mainly market-based, cost-based, economic-based, and income-based approach. Now, these are 4 different ways where you value your intellectual property rights. When I say IPR, you should also always, if you want to make the thing simpler in your mind, think of an IPR as your house or your real estate or your office So how do you value your house? If I can ask this question, and how do you actually value your house? You value your house, you look at your neighborhood, right? You look at the neighborhood and then decide, oh, my neighbor sold this property for 2 crores, so mine is a corner plot, so I will have 3 crore rupees, right? So this is how you decide. A property dealer tells you. The first part, market based, is something same, where you decide what the market is saying, or you may value your property. I spent so much money constructing it. You may value your property as per that. That's the cost base. Economic based is again maybe a profit over the years that you want to make. That economic based. Income based is again, so I'm just simplifying from real estate. Income based is, oh, my property fetches me a rent of 40,000 rupees a month. So over 10 years, this is the value of my property, and you can value your real estate based on the rent that it gets, right? So all these way of valuing a patent or valuing an intellectual property, think of that you have to sell your house, and what is the best way to do it. So market based approach, and I'll talk about little limitations of all these 4 ways that we have about how to value a property. Market valuation is done at the comparable market transaction. This is what I just mentioned. It has challenges. It is difficult to find comparable deals. The deals are highly confidential, especially in IPRs. When you want to sell your house, it's very easy. You ask a property dealer and he'll tell you, पड़ोस का मकान इतने में बिका था. But not in case of patents, because patents are something new. There is no pados ka makan there. So market-based approach sometimes is a failure when we talk about intellectual property rights, because there are no comparable deals that are available, and most of the deals that happen are confidential. There is a confidentiality contract, so you will never come to know. So perhaps market-based approach has its limitation when you value an IPR. There is a cost-based approach. How much does it cost to create an IPR? Challenges, there is the real value of IP remains hidden. So how do you, in case of an IPR, what is the cost incurred? Cost incurred may be perhaps set up a lab that you had, an idea, and what you pay to patent attorney, or what you pay to the government fees. All that is cost based. But again, the challenges are that's not the real value. Your real value of your patent or an IPR may be much, much more than the cost based approach. So again, the cost based approach of valuing an intellectual property is has its limitations, and most of the IPR attorneys don't recommend that we use this approach. Now, economic based approach is capitalization of historic profits. Basically, multiple is arrived at after assessing the brand. We look at the workforce, stability, market share, and then historic data of the market itself. What is the growth in that area? Okay, a few years back, maybe 10 years back, there was cloud computing that came. So people used to have all the products, all the IPRs value based on whether it is a cloud computing related startup or a related invention. Now it's an era of artificial intelligence. So perhaps startups who are working in and filing their IPRs with respect to artificial intelligence would be much, much more at the advantage. So again, the economic based approach is basically looking at the history, looking at the technology, and looking at the future also to see what will be the market share of this particular piece of IPR, which is now artificial intelligence, say, whether what other products, whether and whether there can be a self-driven car without a driver based on AI. Already projects are going on that. So what will be? So you don't need a driver. Just a car will come. You sit in the car and you can go anywhere. So you don't need an Uber now. So what the economic based approach does is looks at historic profits in an industry and where the industry is going, where is the trend of profitability going, and um, then perhaps um, deciding on the value of the IPRs. But many times I say this is also a gamble. Uh, Today we may it's not though it's based on historic profits, but it assumes certain fundamentals that are extremely risky, and that's how what we do in when we go to a share market also, these kind of thoughts and these kinds of approaches you have to do when you try to purchase a share, and that's how the stock exchange would work. Now the fourth way, which is my favorite, is income based approach, which is very practical actually, uh, of valuing an IPR. It is based on a mathematics. In fact, we have given, I can't name the client, but we have an Indian client which recently we are working on it. We are in the midst of a project. They have 200 active um, patents, live patents, and of course we crossed the stage of auditing. They have 200 active patents and around more than 1,000 about to be granted. I can tell you an industry, it's in the automobile industry. An automobile industry has a lot of design patents also. The way an automobile is designed can get protected under the Design Act in India. So we are valuing that, and what our client has asked finally is to, and they got convinced by some of the calls that we had, is to use income based approach. So income based approach can be your projected cash flows, economic life, and discounted rates. These are three things, and every of these elements have a numeric value. Okay, they are not big thoughts. You can put a value to it. You can actually put it in an Excel sheet and find out. Unlike the previous three, which are perhaps important, but they are easier and important, but have some drawbacks in that. So projected cash flow is basically these are direct and indirect cash flow resulting from an IP assets, and then you project it, of course, over the years. Economic life. So what is the economic life left? We all know patents are for 20 years. So in 20 years, and we are already crossed, say, 11 years, the economic life is 9 years. So you have to you have to value your patent as per the economic life left in that piece of intellectual property right. It's again very important that when we look at the economic life of a piece of IPR, we don't look at the piece of IPR. We also look at there is a concept called evergreening of IPRs. Now, it is sometimes the big companies use this method, and it's not necessarily an ethical way to do it. But what they do is when their IPR is about to expire, say 20 years, your patent will expire, or your design expires in around 15 years. So the last year they filed another patent, which is very small modification, in very incremental difference between the original and the new one filed, and they get a patent on it. That's called the term that is used is evergreening of IPR. So that happens a lot in pharmaceutical industry. When their drug is about to expire, they would make a little modification in the salt and say, oh, it's a new patent and now it is for 40 years, now it is for 60 years, which is not exactly the correct way to, I will say, an ethical way to do it. But yes, the concept of economic life of an IPR is changing, and we have a lot of challenges in an income based approach. How do you have an economic life of IPR, given that there is an evergreening of the patent? Discounted rate is again, it refers to the expected cost of financing the asset in question. We'll talk about the formula of discounted rate, and when we talk about discounted rate, it's an industry term. It is not necessarily confined to IPR. The way an insurance insures a product or it insures an asset, it uses perhaps it uses a discounted rate in insurance. And so these three components are used in an income based. When we say income based approach, we look at the today's income that is being generated by a piece of IPRs. Okay, so and it has all these three components. And as I said, it's don't look at the individual IP assets, but look at portfolio. So when I gave you an example of one of my clients, it's the whole portfolio that we are assessing at this point of time. So income based approach. This is a formula which is again it looks complex, but it's really easy when you get into it. So what is the value of that patent, or what is the value of that IPR? We see V0 is the value of IPR today, N is the remaining life of a patent. Okay, so we see the last part of the formula where N is written. Okay, CF1 through CFN are the expected cash flows, which is again very easy to see. Okay, my patent this is earning this much, is earning say $5 million this year. So you just put this as a value in CF1, CF2, CF3, looking at the industry over the years. And R is a discounted rate that adjusts future rupees to present value. And again, as I said, in the discounted rate, this is how most of your insurance, most of your loans that the government, that the bank provide, does look at the discounted rate of an asset and values it and gives you a loan. So you R is actually a discounted rate. It actually means that if an asset is valued at say $100,000 after 10 years, but there are people who will buy it today at half the price. So you get because you're buying it today, because you're selling it today, so the price is half. We are not waiting for 10 years. So discounted rate is the value of asset that exists today. So these are standard formulas which any valuer of an IPR, and by IPR, as I said, any real estate asset, any collateral that you give to the bank, they would use this income based approach perhaps to come at the value, and then based on that a value is given, and based on that a loan is given to an organization. So these are the, again, very broadly speaking, these can actually we can go into much details, but as I said, at this stage, important for all the students is to compare a piece of intellectual property rights with that of a real asset. Okay, like your house. So how do you value a house? Maybe when you go and take a loan from the bank, the banker will explain it to you that he used the market based approach, and actually maybe a circle rate. There is a circle rate that the people in Delhi know what the circle rate is, because the government says this is what the minimum rate is of a particular property, and you have to pay stamp duty based on that. So when the government decides, maybe this is a fifth approach that is called a circle rate, the government decides the value of intellectual property rights. And this may happen especially in the software industry, where we see a lot of subscription happening, and the government actually saying, "Oh, this transfer pricing does not look right to me. Okay, you should be taxed more." So there is always a tussle with the tax department and the organization on the transfer pricing. Anyway, so this is the way you do valuation of an intellectual property rights, and we'll come if there are any questions based on that. Okay. And this formula is again very important, as I mentioned, to calculate the current income based on the future income that an IPR asset may bring about.
Really, sir, marvelous presentation, and the topic is also that you have taken up. It is a rare topic, sir.
Thank you
It is
so
a
much.
rare topic because IPR audit, valuation, licenses, these are the rare topic on which
Yes.
at least teachers are not focusing. I am
Yes.
very frank.
Yes.
Because it is, and you are a lawyer, sir, and you are having such type of litigations, problems, so you have objective understanding of all
Yeah.
these issues, taxation issues, audit issues, valuation, how it shall be done. So it is a very less in India, I
Yes.
think so.
Yes.
Rather, it requires to encourage, and it will be encouraged only when there is an investment in IPR.
Correct.
More investment, more industrial growth, quality of product, and internal trade as well as external trade. That is the foreign trade. So I think that this area is a gray area on which we should work together. And
Yes.
I request the participant to query sir. If you have any doubt, please, the participants.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
Sir,
I don't know how to come out of this presentation now. Let me see.
Sir,
Yes, go ahead, please.
sir, how does an IP audit address the issue of infringement, IP imprisonment?
Yes, it does. I think one of my slide I also talked about the same. Is how. One moment. Let me see how I can come out of the. Am I out of the presentation now? No.
Yes, so you're out of the presentation. The
Okay,
sharing.
good, very good. All right. So the question was, does the IPR audit cares about infringement? Yes, it does, absolutely. And infringement in both ways. When I do an IPR audit, I see that my piece of IPR is not infringed by anyone else. Okay. My brand, my patent, my design is not being used by anyone else in the market. And opposite also, that I am not infringing anyone else's IPR. So the IPR audit consists of not only your processes, but also the infringement, whether there is an external infringement or by any reasons or by mistake, I am infringing on anyone's IPR. So both ways. So answer is right, but very important part of an audit.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, any student, please, any participant.
Sir, I have a couple of questions. So the first question I have is that what is the time duration of conducting an IPR audit? Is that an annual process?
So as I said, IPR audits are not a statutory audit. Though valuation of IPR, the Institute of Chartered Accountants has made it mandatory to value your intangibles. But audit part of it is not mandatory. So in one of the slides, I had mentioned the events when you need an IPR audit. So if you are selling your company, you need an IPR audit. So if there is in the marketplace, there is a product like this, if you feel that you are not able to manage your IPR across the globe, if you're seeing that your employees are not cooperating in terms of storing the IPRs, so that is more of an incident based. If you're trying to take a loan from the bank, I gave an example of Kingfisher. Kingfisher took a lot of loan based on its brand. So these are most of the events when organization goes for a loan, when it goes for an IPO, a public offering that goes to stock market, then they have to value and audit their IPRs. So though it is not statutory that you require every year, like your chartered accountant does every year, he needs to file a returns and does a statutory audit. IPR audits are mostly necessity based, event based, I will say, but they are very important, very, very prevalent way of doing it. Now my client is acquiring a company in India, so they want to do a complete IPR audit there. So and sometimes they have to do twice a year instead of once in a year. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. So another question that persists in my mind is that you explained 4 approaches for valuing an IPR. So there might be differences if we value an IPR by using any 2 of the approaches. So how does one decide which approach to go for?
So as I say, compare this to your house. So one buyer says, I will give you this much. The other buyer says, I will give you this much. So which one do you decide? Right? So valuation of IPR, if you think the market-based approach is not favoring you, and the buyer says, no, I will go by market. It is a negotiation that happens at the end of the day. Valuation, you're right. I will value it in a particular way and you will value it in a different way. Same with your real estate also. How do you value your real estate? I may say 1 crore ka hai, other may say nahi, ye to 1.5 crore ka hai ghar. So there is no perfect way. The bank will say, no, this is only for 50 lakhs because they have to give a loan based on the IPR. So which approach you use, ultimately it is between the buyer and seller. The event that is happening, that the valuation finally is a negotiation process. Like for any other asset, any machinery you buy, any car you buy, the valuation process is at the end of the day, the buyer and the seller decides it. Same with intellectual property rights also. There's no best way.
Thank you, sir.
Any question, any person, please? Hope that each and every participant have got the insight. I would like to request the participants, please you put vote of thanks because this is a very, very valuable lecture. So please request you, any of the participant, please switch on your camera and put vote of thanks to Honorable Dinesh Jotwani sir. Participants, please.
Participants are in Saturday mood, I think.
Saturday slumber. Participant, please switch on your camera and put vote of thanks. Unmute your mic also. Your mic is closed. Mic, unmute your mic.
Sir, thank you so much. It was a very wonderful presentation. It was really helpful in obtaining the knowledge of this gray area of this IP audit. Really, it was very nice. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. I hope
any other participant, please? Any other participant? I am giving you opportunity. Any other participant, please? Switch on your camera and put vote of thanks. Unmute your mic.
So it was a really insightful session. We were clear about many aspects about IP audit and the approaches as well.
One thing, let me tell you, when vote of thanks is put, then you should summarize briefly in 1 or 2 minutes what sir said. Then it will be a very good vote of thanks. So any of you, please, this is an exercise, this is a summary school where you are learning the things which you cannot learn in the school curriculum. No curriculum has the topics which I have added and which our honorable resource persons, they have delivered. So you should be very aware of. You are lucky that you are getting these new knowledges which are quite away from our syllabus. It is not in our syllabus. So now I request Baisali Jain, Research Officer of Chanakya National Law University Patna, DPIIT-IPR Chair, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, to put formal vote of thanks to our Honorable Dinesh Jotwani, sir.
A very good afternoon, sir, and all the participants. On behalf of the organizing committee and all the participants, sir, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude, sir, for reflecting the precise and in-depth knowledge upon this complex topic. Especially the way you dealt with the approaches of calculating or evaluating the patent and why the valuation of the patent is important. I think that this is one of the most important aspects, which I think is very helpful for the students. So once again, sir, deepest gratitude, sir, for sharing your first-hand experience. And I don't think so anybody else would be the best person to share this experience as you are dealing with such matters. So gathering information from you was a great opportunity for us. Thank you once again, sir.
I request also Bisal Kumar, research scholar, to put vote of thanks. Bisal Kumar. One vote of thanks is not enough for sir. Bisal. Yeah. Yes, Bisal. Your mic is off perhaps. Switch on your mic. It's perhaps the link is not.
No problem. Okay, I'm humbled. I'm humbled.
Okay, sir. So,
Yeah.
with great gratitude to you, sir. I am grateful to you that with a very short notice you always bless us. And I know very well that your time is so precious. You are so busy, and you have so many assistants and associates that you are always engaged in this court, that court, this work, that work. But despite that, you spare such a valuable time for us for the intellectual property rights mission. And I think that you are also dedicated to IPR mission. You are not taking IPR as a profit or profession, rather as a mission for the propagation of industrial development, technological development, human development also. So with these words, I thank you, sir, and wish you again and request you again, invite you again to be our most important associate, most important fellows of DPIIT-IPR chair also. Thanks, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. I'm humbled and I'm blessed. Thank you so much, sir.
Doctor, his